Hey guys, this week we spoke to Mr. Ashwin Jaishankar. He is the CEO and founder of AutoVRse, which is one of India's leading simulation and virtual reality company. AutoVRse has a client list consists of many Fortune 500 companies like Bosch, Godrej, Volvo, Shell, and IFP. Ashwin shared his journey into virtual reality and how he come up with such crazy VR experiments. I know this podcast is late because it took several days of trial and error. I really appreciate Ashwin's patience for this. We shot the podcast in our Rec Room studio. I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Hey guys, it's me Avidvedi and you are listening on Extended Reality Developers of India community. Today I'm really excited to host Mr. Ashwin Jaishankar, who's a founder of AutoVerse. So we're gonna discuss him a lot of things because he has such a great and beautiful website. Even he has built such a great products. So we're gonna dive into his work and we're gonna discuss a lot of things. So hi Ashwin, really welcome on the show and we are really excited to host you.
Hi Avi. Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
And yeah,
It's
thanks for
quite
agreeing
exciting. I haven't
to
done a Rec Room podcast before.
yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for agreeing to do it in virtual reality. We are right now celebrating virtual reality.
yeah. I feel like we should definitely be doing this in VR. If it's a VR podcast, better do it in VR, right?
Yeah, better do it in VR.
This is
So
it's nice.
Ashwin would love to know about you. Our audience would love to know that who are you and what you do. What is Autoverse?
Sure, sure. So yeah, my name is Ashwin. I'm one of the founders at AutoVerse. AutoVerse is a VR company that we started back in 2016. Um, My personal background is both that I was a mechanical engineer, but didn't really like mechanical engineering much. Preferred programming and computer science, and so I used to go with friends to a bunch of hackathons. At one of these hackathons, um, I had ordered a Google Cardboard, and we decided to build a VR app. It was a NASA Space Apps hackathon, actually, and yeah, we built a VR app for the Mars Curiosity rover. That was the first time I tried VR back in 2015. And so, yeah, I mean, as most people who have tried VR will probably be able to relate with. Once you try it out, you really, like your mind just explodes with the possibilities of what you can build and do with this tech, right? So yeah, spend around a year looking for legitimate use cases to build for. And a year in, we found that in the automotive industry where we wanted to help automotive designers use VR in their design process as they built out cars, right? And so that's where we started. That's where the name Autoverse initially came from as well. But over the last 5 years now, as you know, knowledge of VR and AR has grown across industries, grown across different demographics and geographies, etc. We have also grown with it, right? And we have expanded beyond the automotive industry. We're expanded beyond building for designers. We work now with people in marketing, building virtual showrooms. We work with people in industry, building training experiences or AR remote and applications, right? And a couple of years ago, we also decided to completely dive into the consumer side of VR as well, and started our own game studio. And we've been building a game called TEM, which we'll be launching later this year for the Oculus Quest and other Steam VR headsets as well. So yeah, all in all, it's been a very interesting 5 years at this point. It's also we're just getting started. It's obviously very exciting seeing it now with the Oculus Quest and how VR adoption has started skyrocketing. So yeah, the next few years are going to be very exciting.
Wow, it's really great news that your game is coming this year. That's amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
so, uh, Talking about Autoverse, as you said, it started in 2015. So, would love to talk about your earlier days. As you said, you were figuring out what are the use cases, what could be done with virtual reality. Would love to know what were the earliest thing which you thought of building and what they end up being. So, yeah, would love to discuss.
Sure. Sure. So I think in 2015 we decided that we wanted to sort of work in the space, right? We started just thinking about all the various use cases that you could build. I mean, that VR would be sort of the ideal far, right? So I think that would be when you start off, maybe the first thing is everyone, it's almost like the first idea everyone thinks of is like a real estate walkthrough or an architectural walkthrough, right? Just what if you could walk, I mean, instead of going to multiple homes and seeing it, if you could just put on a VR headset and walk through it. But we didn't, that wasn't something that really excited us or captured our imagination. There were also a lot of companies already attempting to do that. And I guess now 5 years on, clearly Matterport is the winner there, right? But yeah, that wasn't something that really appealed to us. On the other hand, there are of course other use cases, like another thing which immediately comes to your mind again is something like education. Why not, watching the Dandi March via a boring history lesson, like actually have, you know, uh, like give children the opportunity to put on a headset, actually go there and like walk with them and see what the actual experience is
Yeah,
like. And
informing
not just that,
practice
maybe like
stories.
say the formation. Yeah, and so the formation of, I don't know, see how the Himalayas were formed, or how like everything. If you could just if people could experience it, of course, it's going to be so much more memorable, and you're going to truly understand how it worked if you experience it as a simulation rather than just be told or read it in a book, right? So that was very appealing, but again, the technology or the industry is the education industry is not yet mature or ready for this, right? VR as well is not yet ready for that. So yeah, we took some time trying to find that right use case, which is kind of which would solve a problem immediately, and there were people who'd be willing to pay for that problem to be solved right away. And so we had, I was lucky enough to have a friend who worked at Tata Motors as an entry-level engineer, one of my friends from college, but he was very close with the design team there. And so he gave, he had that insight into the design process, and he knew that basically how it works is how automotive designers work, because they make these concept designs, right, in 3D softwares, like your various CAD softwares made by Autodesk or Dassault Systems. And when they need to present their design to senior management or people who are not designers, they can't show them this 3D model on a screen, right? Because people can't really get that understanding of the sense of scale, how big the car is, how it will compare to a competitor, etc. And so what they would do is they'd make these clay models, right? Could be 25% scale, could be life-size scale, and these clay models were they're very expensive to make, take a lot of time as well, depending on the size and detail, anywhere between 1 month to 3 months, and anywhere between say 25-30 lakhs per model to even 2 crores per model for the final one, right? And so across the life cycle of a single car or truck or whatever they build, um, automotive companies in India generally make around 25 to 30 of these models, which felt like an immense like amount of time and money being wasted there, that we could that VR could definitely be a fit with. And so at that point, the HTC Vive and Oculus were just right. And so initially we started building out with the Samsung Gear that had only 3 degrees of freedom VR. You couldn't actually walk around the car, so it wasn't an ideal solution, but it was enough for them to see potential.
Yep.
Based on that, we pre-ordered the HTC Vive on the first day. It came a couple months later. We ported everything over to it, and on the HTC Vive, we actually had room scale VR. So
Yep.
we, at this point, we had worked very closely with the designers. We had built out, like say, a system where you could just drag and drop their CAD models, and then you'd have all these photorealistic materials and textures that you could just drag and drop in the car, so that the car wouldn't just look like a clay model. It would look super realistic, right? And we had multiple environments, photorealistic environments, which with accurate reflections, etc. All this built on top of Unreal Engine. And yeah, so the designers loved it. We also had plans to add multiplayer and networking and everything, so that they could have design reviews with other design studios across the world, right? And so this is what we built. But of course, what we factor in our, again, a naivety, or again, we were just starting the company off, right? Is that IT teams were particularly resistant to the idea of buying VR hardware at that point, right? Because HTC and Facebook were the companies manufacturing this. IT teams didn't really trust that these devices would function as is, and so there was a lot of opposition to buying the hardware, even though like the designers actually wanted it and it was helping their workflow out. But yeah, what was good about it was that while working with these designers, we were able to make these extremely realistic simulations, right? And we are like, they had a very high threshold for how realistic a VR experience would look. So say now, like in this rec room world, this is cartoonish, this is stylized, and this is the bulk of VR out there right now. But we were able to offer a very photorealistic simulation, and so the marketing folk really liked it. And while we were trying to figure out what the next step is, etc., they started asking for things like virtual showrooms. So if you walk into a car showroom in India, they'll only have a few models in a few colors, right? So with VR headsets installed in each showroom, you'd be able to go in there, see see the car, see the vehicle at scale, walk around it, see all the different variants, all the different colors, etc., and just play around with it. And so that's where we got our first few deals coming in. And so obviously you started there, but then when we worked with it, we worked with TVS and Volvo building these kind of virtual showrooms out for them. And naturally the next step then is, if it's a virtual showroom and you can see the car, why not have a virtual test drive? And so for TVS, we built stuff like that. We built something for the Apache where they could first assemble the Apache from scratch, customize the way they want, and actually ride it on a virtual racetrack, right? We had another one for the TVS and Torque, where there it was just more, they tied in with Comic Con, etc. They tied up with Bumblebee, so you could see like the bike transform in front of you into a transformer of sorts. You could, we had this different experience where you could have um, the bike being assembled sort of Iron Man style, right? To tie in with that whole comic theme. And so lots of fun experiential things that we built early on, just to help these clients use it. And obviously, as this was something which didn't necessarily need to be just for the automotive industry, almost any high ticket item or premium item out there, right? We started building these VR experiences for. So we started working in pharmaceuticals with Abbott, in like say let's say with Go-Jek, where we almost built a first-person shooter game for them, where we showcase all of their various products while they were shooting enemies, etc. So say they have something like, if you wanted to buy bullets, you have GoPay. You would use that and get bullets. If you needed health, GoMed is something where you could order medicines online using Go-Jek, right? So that's how you would get it. When you ran out of cover, you could get a GoCar, which is basically a competitor to an Uber or an Ola, right? And so these kind of things. So basically, just with VR experiences, just showcasing our customers' products to their end clients, right? And so yeah, that was, I would say, early use cases, and maybe the first 2-3 years of AutoVRse, that's what we were doing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, Ashwin, would love to ask. There, you mentioned some cases which are like very obvious, like building some sort of game or doing some sort of gamification. But what surprises me that you also have did a lot of things which does not directly relate to uh, or nobody would think that okay, this could be done in virtual reality. Like on your website I found one dishwasher that you worked with washing
Yeah.
machine companies, and things like that. So my question to you is what is your process when you go and approach these people who who never even thought of promoting, marketing, or getting a customer who these mediums who are
Yeah.
in virtual reality, augmented reality, or very creative mediums. So, what is the flow which you have in mind, or what is the process you follow? That okay, I'm gonna pitch this to this particular client who has no idea about
Yeah.
virtual reality. How do you tease them?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. The dishwasher is surprisingly, the home appliances space has been our most successful. Um, I would say the place where we've got the best results for our
Yep.
clients. Yeah, definitely it's not something which I would have imagined. When we started out, we didn't know that we would be building it. It's just sort of one of those things, right? You start building, you start getting into the space, you start seeing so many more applications of the technology that you're doing. So the dishwasher story is actually very interesting. So we were part of the Bosch accelerator, right? And obviously we accelerator because they're the largest automotive supplier in the world. And naturally, it seemed like a good fit for our services. And so there we went from, okay, So you're building for the automotive industry. Now let's for the people who supply to the automotive industry. So the first project that we had with Bosch was, say, they had this emergency call system, right? It was an IoT product which basically you install inside a car, and if the car gets into an accident, this will automatically send a signal to Bosch's satellites, and they have a network of call centers who will then call you and speak to you, understand your problem, what happen if it's an accident, send an ambulance to your location. If it's a breakdown, send some mechanic to your location, right? Something like this. So this was a product that Bosch was selling to automotive companies around the globe. And again, there's something, these are deals which they need to sort of close with the CXOs of these companies, and you get very little time, maybe anywhere between 2 to 3 minutes for their salespeople to make the pitch. So what we pitched to them was like, now let's do this. You're like, when these CXOs come, just put them in the VR headset. They'll be driving a car. Let's get them into an accident there, and then in real time, show them how this actually works. Because otherwise, they take too long to just explain how this works. And so, in 45 seconds, we had this kind of physics-driven simulation of you driving a car. Based on whatever they do, there was like some slippery part on the surface on the car while you're driving through the hills, and they just fall down and it topples. And it was different for each person, which was very fun for them. But we'd also made this VR simulation actually link with Bosch's call center. So in the VR simulation, that operator would actually call them, they could see his screen being shared, like the call center, and so they could see in real time. He would ask them, are you hurt, what's happening? They could see him type it into their software, and so within a minute or so, then the ambulance would turn up, and so within a minute or so, they got like a real time, again, simulation of what this product could do for people. And so that was very successful for them. So I would say we entered the Bosch accelerator thinking of use cases like this, and we got projects like this. And then Bosch also makes home appliances. So say someone from the home appliances team, they came to see it, and we just pitched this to them. And we pitching this to basically anyone who would listen. And if you say, what's our process for finding such people? Honestly, over time, what it's turned into is just anyone who wants to see it, anyone who wants to see VR, anyone who we think, like who we have a solution for, we just try to get into the same room as them and put a headset on them, right? They're always skeptical. They're always like worried about, nausea, or worried about your hairstyle getting spoiled or things like that. But the instant they wear the headset and they see the experience, they see the realism, etc., all that is gone. When they take off the headset, they're ready. Their mind is buzzing with ideas. They're just ready to build whatever it is. That's the magic of VR, right? That's also why post-pandemic we've had to completely change our process, because that's not possible anymore. But yeah, I would say our process became this. And so one of the first things which sort of made us change our approach and be like, let's just, whoever we meet, whoever has anything to sell or any job to do, they just put them in VR and see what ideas come, was because of this dishwasher team, right? And so this was in 2017, I think early 2017. And so Bosch basically had a new dishwasher out, which was meant for the Indian customer. It was ISO certified and stuff. There were certain features they'd added which made it specifically suited for Indian utensils. But naturally, Indians don't trust, like we don't trust the dishwasher thing. They do job of cleaning our dishes. This was not true with the new dishwasher, right? And so up until that point, how Bosch's people demoed the dishwasher was they'd set up stalls at like malls, apartments, offices, and they keep the dishwasher there with like a transparent cover, and so that would just keep running. So what people would see when they came to the stall was they'd see a dishwasher just cleaning clean dishes through the day. Each cycle is like 2-3 hours. Obviously, they're not getting anything impactful. So what we pitched to them was, hey, how about we do this? Once your users put on the headset, they'll be in an Indian kitchen. They can walk up to a sink, see all the dishes there, remove it, dirty it as much as they want, put it inside the dishwasher, so they can see how it gets loaded as well. But then once they shut it and start it, they'll go inside the dishwasher and actually fly around it and see how it works. And so that was our pitch to them. More than anything, I'm obviously very grateful that they bought into that idea, right? Because that was just something we made up on the fly as soon as they saw it, and they loved it. And so they had that faith in us. They had the faith in the technology. Let's go for it. And so we went ahead, we built that out, we launched with them in India in 5 cities, and it was super successful for them. It's their conversion shot up by almost 30%, and then I guess before it was around 5%. So when people come to these stalls, I think they put down a down payment $5,000, and so after seeing experience, basically 30% more people started doing this, which was obviously very exciting for them. So based on that success, we scaled it up within India. We scaled it with other Bosch teams in other geographies as well, in Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, Germany, and we worked with them for like other home appliances. Meanwhile, IFB was a natural competitor, and so they reached out to us based off this experience and asked us to make similar applications for all their appliances. And so, yeah, we signed a deal with IFB to put VR experiences in 500 showrooms across the country. And that's been something that was working out really well up until, of course, the pandemic hit, at which point going to a showroom, putting on a VR headset obviously doesn't become an option anymore, right? But yeah, that was what happened in the home appliance space. Yeah, so if I go into each project we've done, right, there's always weird stories like this. With Abbott as well, something very specific around their around one drug which they wanted to sell, and so we made a whole storyline around the drug and its history to pitch to doctors, and so that was super successful for them as well. They used it at events across the country for all. Yeah, so the other obvious use case for VR was training, right? And so with Shell specifically, they invest a lot of money in training their employees. Safety has to be a big priority for them, right? Because of the dangerous things that the environments that they work in. So our sort of tagline for training is, we say VR is best suited for training people in dire situations, where dire is an acronym for dangerous, impossible, rare, or expensive, because you can't use it for anything. There is a cost involved to building out the simulation, the investing in the hardware, etc. And for any situation that's sort of covered by one of these four buckets, like that is in one of these four buckets, it's perfect. So with Shell specifically, it was that at each of their plants, right, there's always a chance of a fire breaking out. And based on the part of the plant in which a fire breaks out, there are different kinds of measures to contain it. Now, obviously, they have emergency responders on site, but they also have, like before the actual, say, fire authorities get there, people who are aware of what they need to do just to contain the fire till the actual authorities get on site. But these guys, while they are trained, they can't be trained for every situation that you have. And up until that point is basically they were sent to fire, like say a camp somewhere where they were trained in how to put out fires. But obviously that training fades with time, right? What the VR simulation did was it helped. What we did was we synced up with one of their systems. We had basically a place where they could put on the headset. They would be in a life-size simulation of the plant. You can spawn a fire anywhere, and then they'd have to work with other employees to figure out how exactly do we contain this fire. And so this fire could be spawned anywhere in the plant. The instructor could see them while they are firefighting each of these situations, and then if they get anything wrong, if they strategize wrongly, they can help them out. We also had things like, all of a sudden you can make it so that one particular fire hydrant stops working, so that in real time you can test your ability to then go ahead and sort of work around this problem, right? And so yeah, that was one of the most interesting training experiences we have built. There are a lot of other similar things, of course, say production lines for Bosch in one of their plants, where we literally create a replica of the actual production line, so that any employee who joins the firm newly, they first practice in the VR simulation before they go into the actual production line. So yeah, use cases like this.
Awesome. Would also love to know about your process, since you have built such great applications and such use cases which nobody have ever think of that as well. So what is your creative process?
Yeah. So yeah, I think our approach is very different to say how. So maybe you can compare it to say other services firms, and how, for the most part, at that point, people, when you're discussing with your client, they already have an understanding of what they're going to get, because it, like say this is a mature space, if it's a web or an app or a website or an app or anything, right? Here the problem is that they cannot imagine what is happening. And
Right.
so what we do right at the pitch stage is, first we send maybe like just in text form 3 or 4 different ideas, different approaches. Some will be really wacky, some will be very basic, some will be like in between, just elements of both. And so we'll try and get an idea of what they think suits their purpose. We understand their product properly, we understand what they want their users to think. And then after that, once we know what kind of idea they want, we actually go ahead and so back then it wasn't a tool like SketchUp, right? We would create a storyboard with a sort of play-by-play of how the experience would flow. And so this is prior to closing the deal itself. We send them this storyboard because this serves 2 purposes. One, it helps them understand what they're doing and why, and they can properly envision that user journey, right? But two is also, when you work with corporates, typically they also need to go ahead and convince other stakeholders within their company to give the budget for what is always going to be considered a risky project, right? Because yeah, VR is still growing, it is still nascent, right? So this deck that we give them, which will have the storyboard, etc., they can use it also to pitch to internal stakeholders and get those budget things done. So yeah, it also forces us right at the beginning to be able to think about if we can actually help them out of the solution we're building, and also visualize how we can get this started, right? But yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
that is kind of the most key part for us to actually close these deals with clients. Once it
Great.
closes, things change, of course, because yeah, even if you plan these things out, when people actually use the the experience that you've built in VR, there are just problems which you cannot, like, it's not possible for me to anticipate before you see someone try it out, right? Because it's such a new technology, there are no UI or UX like there are standards, but a lot of those standards are also designed for, say, the average user in a first world country, right? Not necessarily,
Yep.
say, a blue collar at a TVS plant or a Bosch plant. And so that is a whole new set of challenges. But mentally, we also know that if we promise, say, a timeline of 2 months to a client, we know that we need an additional month after deployment to work with them to ensure that it's actually useful and usable to them. And we sort of invest the time to get that done.
Yeah, so with virtual reality, we get also a lot of projects. So a lot of time we also get projects where the idea is not even feasible. Idea is so far fetched that we sometimes even laugh that what we are thinking. We are not magicians, right? Or then we have to come
Yeah.
up with some sort of manipulative ways. Okay, we can do this, but we can offer something like this, right? Would love to know
Yeah.
some of such funny incidents where like you came across to such an idea which is like technically not even possible, something with VR.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think you get all sorts of crazy asks. For me, I think that the one that sticks out is maybe once this was, we were pitching to a builder, and it was basically a training tool for building scaffolding. So what they wanted at that point, what they demanded was that, and this was very late after we had visualized the entire tool, what they asked for was the ability to feel the weight of what they pick up.
Oh,
And so, and they wanted that kind of, I was like, yeah, how, it's not going to happen. But what we did was, so actually, they said that, no, I'm sure it's possible, things like that, etc. So we, to sort of prototype it out and show them that, okay, there is some way that kind of fool people into thinking that they need to put force in VR or feel weight in VR was, so we had 3 levers, right? And that's actually there in our VR training demo on the Quest. But there are 3 levers, and each lever needs to be like more and more, I'd say, heavy, or like you need more force to pull it, right? And so what we did was, say, the first lever was very easy. You just go, hold the trigger, and pull like that. The second one, what we did was we made it a little harder. So if you move your hand faster than a certain speed, then it just kind of disconnects. Like you need to pull it up slowly, like you would something heavy, right? And the third one was even more extreme version. Pull it with both hands and like slowly. And what we saw was, when we user tested that on people, just because you had to move slowly, people automatically started putting in more force, right? And they felt like it was heavier. And so that's kind of how we worked our way around that. It's not obviously
I
accurate,
guess
like
what you
it's
just
not realistic in
mentioned,
the exact science, but yeah.
what you just mentioned also gave us insight about how human thinks, how human. I know about
Yeah.
Everest VR, and the team also discussed that how so many people felt cold around their feet when they were on Everest in virtual reality, and
Yeah.
there was no mechanism which could do that. But their mind make them believe that
Yeah.
okay, this is cold, right? So similar thing you have mentioned that you made the UX in such a way that it made them believe that this particular thing, okay, we have to put that certain amount of force, we have to pull it with both hands, we have to it slowly, that's why it has to be heavy. So
Yeah.
it's more psychology that sometimes we have to work around that cases, otherwise you have to go with a lot of robotics and haptics.
Yeah, yeah, and that's not happening. So we're very clear that we, on the hardware side, we don't want to get involved at all, right? Whatever's out there in the market, the HTC Vive or the Oculus Quest, that's, I mean, that like we're not going to. We did do some things, like say we built like a steering wheel simulation and stuff. Yeah, so we have done stuff like built like a car seat and synced it to steering wheels and stuff like that early on. But around a year in, we just decided no, we will work only with the hardware at present because anything else is just way too difficult to maintain and it's all like just stuck together with like sticky tape, right? It's not actually a proper solution.
Yeah, doing
Yeah.
whatever you are good at.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Stick to your strengths, right? Um, but yeah, been very interesting. All the kinds of challenges we have faced. Probably the biggest one, though, I would say, is after COVID, where we've had to move away from VR entirely to say R and basically web 3D, web AR, web XR kind of stuff. So that has been a whole journey on its own over the last 15, 18 months. But it's I guess kind of working out. If you've seen some of our automotive configurators online or like say again, we've done some work with Godrej here for the security cameras, things like that.
Now, my question to you is going to be, since you are working with such big companies and you are working on such great products, which are like ultimately going to so many customers. Uh, so now it also comes to my mind that the quality what you want to deliver has to be top notch. So for that, what are the
Yeah.
quality assurance and what are the processes which you build for quality checks, and especially in when it comes to VR and AR, when it comes to computer graphics, what are the ways to keep these checks?
Yeah. So yeah, I think a couple of different ways we're trying to do this, right? I think number one and probably the most helpful is just hire great people. Sort of processes help, but it's much easier if you just get people who have that kind of first principles thinking, right? And think about not just what looks good, what feels good, etc., but also from a user experience perspective, especially since we need to rethink everything from the ground up, because almost, I would say, 99% of people who experience what we've built will be experiencing virtual reality for the first time, right? So um, definitely, I would say is top of the list priority-wise. Beyond that as well, I think that so in terms of processes, we've seen when you realize as you're working on right? I think when the project starts off, people there's a great deal of enthusiasm, people a lot of excitement, a lot of ideas, and then you realize frequently, like you build it out, and then once you build it out and get it to a point where you then want users to test or give a shot, it just goes to like things just do not work out the way you expect. At that point, having obviously we promise timeless experiments, we promise that something will do what we expect to do, uh, and then maybe the idea that we tried now you and users are testing it out not working out the way we want, and so the
Right.
culture to sort of go and iterate and actually make that change, right? That is something we're trying to like which we have a process in general, right? So I'll say while building district M instance, one thing that started recently is because so District M is like a rhythm platformer game, right? So the mechanics are very new. Dancing while control a small skater character. And so one thing we're doing there to ensure that sort of the quality is always really good is every Friday we have play sessions, and we always ensure that someone new, like new first time user, will play District M every Friday. So the team can see, say, the features that we have incorporated over the last week, broken something in the game, or maybe made something harder to understand. But yeah, mostly I think a combination of these to hire good people and then make sure that these people always see new people trying out whatever they've built so that they understand where it's going wrong and then make the changes on their own.
Since you talked about the problem with hirings and the problem how India does not teach AR and VR, so we don't get people who have the understanding of the technology when they get out of the colleges, right? So uh,
Yeah.
how do you handle this? Do you train at your organizations? I know a lot of people that take this route, and or do you encourage people to get some experiences and then give some sort of interview to them? So, what is the way to do it?
I think it's a mixture of both. So we're kind of just looking, I think in one sense, because we're sort of adjacent to game development, right? So there are a lot of people who are already working in
Experience.
this kind of just out of their passion, right? Almost as a hobby, they do it part time, and so we are giving them the opportunity to do it full time, right? And so we get a lot of people who want to work in this space, who apply, who are very excited to work here, and so when they join, it depends. Some people are at already at like a very high level of expertise in this, just purely self-taught, and those are always the best. But in I mean, most of the time they are self-taught. They built like small games, maybe in Unity, etc. In which case we need to train them. So yeah, we have our standard training process. I think as soon as someone joins us, we have like a 1 month program. These courses, project and build, and we have a senior developer sort of guide them through, right? So at the end of that, they're kind of ready for a production project, which we then put them onto for maybe like 1 or 2 months, something which will just teach them, okay, this is what production level code is like. You need to account for all the edge cases. This is how VR UI UX itself works. All this they come to terms. But overall expectation wise, I kind of, even when people join our firm, we kind of assume that for the first 3 months they're just going to be so overwhelmed with everything that this whole new ecosystem, industry, just world has to offer, right? Just VR in general. So consuming content, hanging out in rec room or VR chat, all that is also super important. Just playing the games that are out there and then building. And so maybe 3 6 months the line is when I think they actually get some sort of a handle on what the whole ecosystem is like, and then they can start sort of creatively expressing themselves. Right? So those are kind of the approximate timelines that I have in mind whenever someone new joins us.
And I also came
But
to
this
know
is, I think, very developer focused. Yeah.
that you also have some gaming sessions. This also encourages when especially people are working in gaming and virtual reality and technologies to learn
Yeah.
more, right? So you have a dedicated day for this.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's great.
We try to do it every Friday evening,
Mhm.
but it depends on it depends on how busy that Friday is or not. I think recently it's kind of become. We do have that. We do it in office, and it's like like I said, a play session where we end up playing District M, and we make people play other games as well. But before, I think when we were in office in the same place, it was obviously a lot easier to do. Now we just kind of buy the games and keep it on the account, and people, you just get people to interact, like to just play themselves, right? But yeah, rec room, paintball, then rec room, just hang out in general. Then we also do these, I don't know if you've seen on big screen, we have
Yeah.
these kind of little quizzes that we do, that we record and put out. Yeah. So all of these just get like a new, if someone new joins us, we just invite them also to join us and just hang out here, right? And just get acquainted with VR. So all this we do. It
And
definitely
I think
helps,
it's
but yeah,
very
yeah.
important to observe the design of other design principle and especially in
Yeah.
UX to understand that what other players are doing and how people can relate with that. Because unless people are not comfortable with one kind of UI, like Rec Room uses a watch kind of UI. So if we can also use it in
Yeah.
other way, and people more who more use or reckon more are familiar with this kind of UX designs. So yeah, it makes total sense to observe more and try more things to build more things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
So
definitely. I think as soon as the
recently,
new VR game is out, like,
yeah, game is out and you guys gonna grab it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
recently there is a very hot topic called metaverse. So what is your opinion about the metaverse and
Yeah.
in this direction, what are your steps?
Yeah, so I think it's nice in the sense. So the metaverse is of course just I think it's sort of a catch-all
Right,
word right now for just this virtual world that's coming, right? But basically, I think what people are trying to so I think on a very high level is just kind of okay. So till now, the real world is where say, most of our life happens. I think it's clear that okay now people, especially with the pandemic, people are spending more time in virtual worlds than in real worlds, right?
that's
And
true.
so at some point in the future, on a long enough time scale, we're saying that virtual worlds themselves will be more important to you than the real world, or it can go both ways. Maybe the virtual world and the real world merge and interconnect so thoroughly that it's impossible to separate one from the other. And so I guess this final state is what we're calling as the metaverse. And so I think now, fine, via VR, we're just kind of exploring, say, it's just the most complete way to enter the metaverse because once you put on the headset, you're entirely immersed in it.
Right,
But I also think from the other side is like giving virtual goods and virtual products the same kind of valuation or like feeling that they're as important, and say that comes with the additional things of you want a functioning virtual economy, you want to have guaranteed ownership of virtual products. And so we're seeing now with blockchain and NFTs, etc., we're we're kind of approaching the metaverse from another direction. And so both of these are on a collision course. um, and I think we're seeing like maybe the first implementations of that with stuff like Decentraland and everything.
mhm,
Maybe not VR exactly, but yes, virtual worlds
right.
with a proper functioning virtual economy and completely decentralized, so that you're not sort of gate kept by a Facebook or an Apple or or Google or whatever, right? It's the promise of that whole thing is like whatever you build in the virtual world you will own it entirely. You won't have to give, I don't know, 30% of it to some random tech giant, right? And so, yeah, it's definitely like it's coming. How fast it's going to happen, I think depends on a lot of factors. I think from hardware to network latency to yeah, just I guess cultural and societal norms also, right? There's so much to change I mean, to get to that point. But yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the long game that all of us are playing here, whoever is in VR. Um, I think so. The question is, what are we doing at AutoVRse to move towards the metaverse right now? I, it would be, I think we're just sort of dipping our toes in the water, right? I think fundamentally with the metaverse, what's going to happen is this sense of online community is going to be so much more important. Uh, if say the previous era of the web involved connecting with as many people as possible, and social networks play such a crucial role. Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, whatever, all of these are designed to reach as many people as possible and find out what they're doing. And that's what you get your news feed, everything from there. Maybe the next phase with the metaverse is going to be limiting yourself to the people who matter most and having really high quality interactions with them, while say there will obviously be remnants from the previous 10 years that you'll just consume news from. So how this pans out, I think we're still waiting to see, but I feel like our first step toward that is building a community who knows our work, who likes playing what we create. And so we have just sort of begun a journey, I would think, over the last year or so with our communities. And now once we launch District M, more of our work goes out there, and obviously giving back to the community, right? Giving them resources and giving them ways to build cool stuff and get into this space on their own. So that's kind of the phase in which we are right now.
So let's talk about the future of VR. So you spoke about a lot of things like like how the emergence gonna happen, the metaverse gonna collide together, I would say, because I think what I feel
Yeah.
about NFT is the biggest platform of NFT, OpenSea, is somehow going to blend with
Yeah.
some sort of virtual reality platform. And I guess when Mark Zuckerberg talked about metaverse, he was hinting about that.
Okay, so next 5 to 10 years, where I think we are going is it's a big ask. But okay, let me try. So I think one of the major things we are going to see first is, so obviously now gaming and everything is one market, right? But that is definitely just sort of a gateway to the possibilities that VR has to offer. I think where we are seeing, like say, the first signs of how impactful VR can be is in stuff like VR chat and Rec Room, where people are people are creating their own worlds, but more importantly, they're creating like their own virtual identities, right? They're saying that the way I look in real life is not really representative of who I am, and maybe the people I meet in the real world don't share the same interests that I have. But when I get into VR chat, um, I I pick a specific avatar which I feel represents who I am truly, and then I connect with people there who I connect with on a more significant level than anyone I've in real life. At that point, you start, and I feel like there's a very significant percentage of users in VR who feel that way, spend a lot of time in VR and make genuine social, like meaningful relationships in there. Uh, that is probably, I think, like the most powerful, I'd say, indicator for what VR can turn into. Right? There are people right now just who say during the pandemic there are children who when they have playing with friends, they obviously can't go meet them in real life, so doing it in VR. And so when these kids grow up, over the next 10, 15 years, the kind of social interactions, the kind of like say the memories we have right now of playing with cricket, I don't know, gully cricket with friends, they will have that in Gorilla Tag.
Right.
And so if that is such a foundational memory, yeah, what will they be doing 10 or 15 years from now is crazy to imagine, right? But yeah, they will be like complete VR natives. And I think that is sort of the final potential of VR, where I feel like maybe it doesn't matter whether it's long distance, the person you're meeting in VR lives next door to you or lives halfway across the world. Um, you will kind of start valuing the relationships you build in this digital space like at the same level or even more than the relationships you have in real life, which is pretty insane when you think about it.
I think very similar to this, that how virtual reality and augmented reality gonna affect the society as well. When you have the power
Yeah.
to work from anywhere and collaborate with teams from anywhere, it could even change how cities are formed, because we live in high cities, which are like
Yeah,
heavily
yeah.
paid metro cities, and then we can live with our families back in whatever the town we come from, and then save money on rents and collaborate with team within virtual
Yeah.
reality. So that is also something where the future is heading towards, and metaverse is
Yeah.
sort of
And I think
allowing us to do that.
yeah, and it's also that's what I guess democratization of opportunity, right? Right now, there's say we were based out of Bangalore. We've got so many advantages just by being in Bangalore by virtue of our location because say Bangalore is like a startup hub, and so people are more open to trying new ideas,
Hmm.
right? And say someone I don't know in a tier two or tier three town obviously does not have the same say just the same odds of success as I do because I grew up in Bangalore.
That's
And
correct.
likewise, if you compare me to someone who grew up in Silicon Valley or I don't know, just in a very developed city, right? They are going to just by virtue of being in that location, they already have a significant advantage over us. And so, yeah, with VR, I guess the promise is that, and obviously it can do that whether we actually build it up and that like the infrastructure that takes I don't know like that builds itself over the next 10 15 years and the community that builds itself around it whether they will still prioritize it that way and I mean, it can disrupt it and kind of democratize it for everyone, but I know if the people leading the space don't make that a priority, then it's very possible that I know we'll just have same problem now in virtual reality, right?
That is correct. So we talked about the how would future look like, but are there any limitations or any problem with virtual reality, the emergence of VR and AR into what are the downside of this?
Of course, right now I think a major concern is just Facebook and its entire monopolization of the space, right?
Mhm.
I think that's something which is going to fix itself over the next few years. But yeah, Facebook have done. I mean, on the one hand, they've done an amazing job. They've
Amazing
definitely
job.
accelerated the curve of VR adoption. Yeah, so definitely credit there. But on the other side, also, yeah, competition is like we need it. We need it badly. VR as a whole needs it. So it's if it is monopolized, then we don't want a walled garden approach, right? It just stifles creativity. It's going right now. It may not be it may not be slowing us down, but it on a long enough time scale, it definitely will be, right? So that thing right now is a problem. But beyond that, I feel there are a lot of issues. I think with smartphones, uh, we had this. I know. I think it's pretty awesome that obviously like I know a Tim Cook or like who are the I mean the most powerful politician in the world or the president of the United States finally has like will have an iPhone, which is still not. Of course, it is much better than say I don't know a 5,000 rupee Xiaomi phone,
Right.
but not too much, right? Like you can both you can do a lot like basically that delta is not is close enough to not matter in the larger scheme of things. With VR, we ensure that that is kept up, right? Because I think one big thing about like the whole VR versus AR debate and the future of VR and AR is like with um, with smartphones and stuff, it does a lot for someone. So, okay, so let's say 95% of the world's population lives in places which are not great to live in, which are not amazing. Like your best cities, your best um, I know, infrastructure opportunities, etc., are all concentrated in very small regions around the world that maybe 5% of the population have access to. The remaining 95% and this 5% has like disproportionate influence over like the world's future. I know the path that the world takes going into the future, right? With VR, definitely the big potential is that suddenly we can make that 5% number, I know, grow 10x or even make it 100% if done right. Uh, and so we should not mess that up. But I feel like right now looking at it, and I mean, that's where decentralization and hopefully the blockchain and crypto play a big role. And on paper, all of should solve these problems. But yeah, I don't know. We clearly, with scaling technology, with how society takes it up, with how legislation has failed to sort of, ensure technology is solving the right problems in the right way over the last 10 years. I don't know if we'll actually do it unless we focus on it and I know, like do it right. We did it right with the World Wide Web, like how that was set up maybe 30 years ago with whatever when the internet started. We didn't do it right for Web 2.0. For Web 3.0, they're saying it's built into the system, but I don't think that's true. Right? There's still a lot of work to be done in that way. So yeah, that I think that's a huge fear that's there.
Is true.
But yeah, I mean, the best way to solve it is sort of be a part of the system and work toward it yourself, right? Which is what we're all trying to do.
Yeah. So when we are talking about Web 3.0 and the global solutions which are coming ahead, uh, how do you see the India versus world in when it comes to VR and immersive technologies? Where do India stand in comparison to world? What world is? And if we stand somewhere low, then what are the hopes for us? What should be the way to catch up
So yeah, I think we've been thinking about this a lot recently. So I actually do
recently?
I have a pretty, I think, yeah, we have it's a conversation we're having recently. I think for the last couple of months, because we've been trying to get like an understanding of this. I think I do have the answer now to some extent, or at least what could be the answer,
Right.
right? So, okay, on one level, obviously on a technology front, in terms of like our hardware, and we just do not have companies at that scale to solve this. Like obviously, Reliance is trying with the VR hardware that they're trying to put out, but they are, yeah, they're definitely not on the level of a Facebook. Just in terms of the billions of dollars Facebook has invested, the kind of talent they are working on it, that's not a battle we're going to win, right? And I think I think previously people keep asking who's the Facebook of India, who's the Google of India and stuff like
Right.
that. But the answer is for us, the Facebook of India and the Google of India are Facebook and Google. We kind of are very open to outside companies, and that's good for the consumer as well, right? But I think what's interesting about Web 3.0 is I feel that technology was sort of a defining factor or like a major competitive advantage like over the course of Web 2.0. If you were able to build an organization that scaled super quickly or build like basically like you build that social network or you build that search engine that Google and Facebook did, you were kind of, I mean, you got a lot of power, a lot of money, etc. And so like the places where these companies were built became like the seat of power of that, right? But I think now with the Web 3.0 companies that are going to come, I think that's changing from say technological advantages and who can I know create the fastest tech and make it scalable super fast to maybe like just who has I would say the best IP almost, right? Because we're seeing now how Epic Games over the last few years, just on the back of Fortnite's success, is now able to at least attempt to start strong arming Apple and Facebook and Google or whoever they're trying it with, right? They did it to Sony and stuff. That was a monopoly that people thought could not break. But they're pushing for that more open metaverse, and they've started making advancements towards it only because so many people now like they really want to play Fortnite. That's where they want to enter. Not they don't care so much if it's like I mean it's a hot take I'm saying, but like compared to I mean like before we had serious iPhone versus Android kind of debates say 10 years ago. Now no one cares about that, right? It's there, people are talking about it, but we just kind of take it for granted. There are marginal gains happening there, but now people are like they don't care if they're playing Fortnite on their PlayStation, on their iOS phone, on their Android phone, or like on a Windows PC, right? They want to be in Fortnite. That's their goal. And so I think that's where India can play a large part. I mean, India can sort of like if we have a very strong technical ecosystem, right? I think in terms of like scalable apps, we've kind of like there are great tech teams operating out of India. But the other thing is we have this huge culture and history and tradition, right, of so many stories and so much. I mean, I don't want to call it intellectual property. Obviously, it's not that, but just this tradition of like this entire history and culture and all these fascinating stories that the rest of the world is just probably if it's done right and exposed to the rest of the world, like they will happily jump in. Like where is India's God of War? Where is India's like GTA 5? Obviously, these are games before, but that's what it started off as. Fortnite started off as a game and turned into a cultural phenomenon,
That is
right?
true.
At this point, I think people always put what the gaming market's net size at like 300 million to 400 million users, and over the last year, I think what the daily active users on Fortnite are 350 to 450 million, right? So there's a big shift coming. And that is where I really think like we should have more Indian firms building out their own IPs, building out like their, I mean, their own worlds where people will
So
want to
India should
spend
take advantage
a
of the
lot of time.
cultural richness what we have and build more and more on those.
Yeah.
Like we see how
Yeah. And yeah.
Korea did with South Korea did with the BTS and we see all these
K-pop and stuff.
examples
Yeah.
coming up. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree for sure. And I think it'll happen. Like basically if we just start building for this. So even now, I mean, I would say District M is not really like it's not a game steeped in like Hindu mythology or something like that, right? Not everyone needs to build like say a game that is like that. But by virtue of building something like there will be parts of our Indian identity just come through because it's a reflection of who you are also, right?
that is
But we
true.
just need more people doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are throwing a small stone in that direction. We are building Bhagavad Gita and virtual, and that is expected to come complete
Nice.
by
Okay.
2023. And hopefully by then we'll also get some good vendors and clients for this particular. But we are working on the same direction. Totally agree with your views on this. So
Nice.
I guess
Nice.
we had a
Okay.
very great conversation, and we discussed a lot of things. I guess Autoverse is doing some amazing stuff, especially when it comes to selling to and building such products which no one ever thought of. You are building products which I could never imagine, because the kind of use cases you are doing and the kind of companies you are
Yeah.
dealing with, it's amazing to see such a great set of work what Autoverse is doing. It's amazing. So
Thank you so much,
before
Avi.
we
You know,
end
that's very
this,
kind to say.
yeah, before we end this, I would like to play a game of uh, bowling with you. So I have set up there one game of bowling. Let's go and try that, because we are
Sure.
in
Yeah.
VR
Let's go for it.
and we can take advantage of.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. You can, one second. Let me just check my OBS. Is it working correctly? Yeah. Yeah. So as you can see, there are some bowls, and it's your chance. So go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let me stand up. I guess I was sitting to the.
Ashwin, you have to score it.
Oh, one sec. No, no, no. I was
You
resetting
dropped
my
ball.
Guardian.
So
Where to
here,
go?
here it is.
Yeah. Okay. Now, just roll it. Will it roll?
Yeah, this will roll. Go for it.
Nice.
Awesome. Second, grab
Go
it.
for it. Oh, me again.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm better.
You scored a complete 10. Awesome. High five. We
I
can do
think
high
I'm.
five, right? I want to gift you this Iron Man suit if you want to try. Can you try this?
What about?
Look in your left, right, actually. There is a suit down there.
Yeah.
Down there.
Oh, here. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hit edit on the pen to edit the card. Oh, how do I wear it?
Uh,
Oh, one
One
second.
second. There should be a button for equip.
Activate the
Yeah,
maker
now
pen or
equip is
something.
there.
Now it's there.
Wow,
Yeah.
you are looking really great, Ashwin. You
I
are
actually
looking
have
very
not
good.
spent enough time. I think I. Thanks, thanks. You made this yourself.
No, no, it's by Recrum.
Oh, okay,
By
okay,
Recrum.
nice.
So thanks for coming on this podcast. I know it took a lot of time to shoot. It
Sure.
took two times for us to
No
shoot.
worries.
Uh,
Yeah, no worries. No, I had fun. It was nice. I've not spent as much time exploring Rec Room as I would have liked. So this was a nice
I
opportunity.
didn't
And yeah,
even
obviously it
get
was
time
lovely
to
speaking to you.
explore it much, but whenever I have to, whenever you asked for the podcasting VR, so I thought, why not just pick this?
Yeah.
This is
No, no, I
amazing.
think it was nice. No, you've done like a really nice job with it. I was not expecting like a custom environment and stuff. I thought we just pick like a random Rec Room environment, which is why I suggested big screen also. Well, this was fun. We always fun talk about VR with someone else and meet someone new, right? Like that's great.